And we have that with the Jeffrey Epstein situation. Heinous man, now commiserating with Satan. I just can't even describe, the evil that this guy embraced. And the federal government knows about some of that evil, but they are not communicating to the people what exactly they know. Now, it's a little bit complicated, as I wrote in my message of the day. There are innocent people that associated to some extent, maybe they had lunch, maybe they just met him one time, with Epstein. If those people's names get put out into the public, their lives could be ruined. Now, I talked about this with Donald Trump, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. But Epstein is now the focus of attention for millions and millions of people. They want to know if the federal government covered up anything, if there were famous people involved with him doing dastardly things. And those are legitimate questions. And honest government will attempt to answer them as best it can while being responsible to the innocent. And that is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. So it's a bad look right now. That's a cliche, I know. But with Attorney General Bondi saying one thing and then saying another thing about the so-called Epstein files, I don't know what the files are. I don't know anything about it. But I do know the federal government has information on the man and what the man's activities comprise. They do. FBI has it. And we are not getting that. Now, the Trump administration is transparent. There has not been a modern-day president. I can't think of anybody in the last 100 years who's been more accessible to the press than Mr. Trump. He's on Air Force One. Every time he got a guest, he takes the questions. He's on the tarmac. He's accessible. Comparing him to Biden, you never saw Biden. Biden wouldn't answer any questions. You couldn't get close to him. Trump every day. So something's not right here. Okay? And I don't know what it is. Will I find out? I don't know about that either. I did request an interview with Kash Patel, who turned me down. That's not good. I know Mr. Patel, been very fair to him over the years. The guy flat out turned me down. Okay. But my obligation to report that to you. And it looks like the federal government is hiding something. But that may not be true. So that's where we are. And I don't like that feeling, and you don't either. I'm sure you don't. We want some definition here, right? Now, a bit of a timeline. August 10th, 2019. All right. Epstein found dead in his New York City jail cell. I believe it's a suicide. I don't believe the New York City coroner made up the fact that the autopsy showed that he expired by hanging himself. I don't believe that. But millions of people believe that he was murdered to cover up something. That's a conspiracy theory, and it's in play. Now, I can't prove my point because I didn't do the postmortem examination on Epstein. And the whole autopsy hasn't been released. Most of it has. Summary has. And then Epstein's brother brought in, hired guns, got people who were paid to tell Epstein's brother what he wanted to hear, that, it looks suspicious to me. You know how that game goes, okay? So the conspiracy is underway. Does that mean anything? No. I mean, I wrote Killing Kennedy. You got 10,000 Kennedy conspiracies, and a lot of those people who pushed that made money on it. You want to know what happened to JFK? You read Killing Kennedy. That's what happened to him. Because we were able to get the primary reporting from the FBI. So without any editing or any of that. We're very lucky to get that. Anyway, the chief medical examiner who was involved in the Epstein case, a woman named Dr. Barbara Sampson, and she's an honest woman. I don't think there's any possibility that she forged anything here. My opinion. Okay, so now what do? Well, clearly the Trump administration doesn't want to hold a press conference, and Bondi would have to do that. She could have Patel there, head of the FBI. They don't want to do that. Again, it's not a good look. So any skilled law enforcement agent knows what they can and can't tell the public. Unless there's somebody under active criminal investigation, you can't put the name out. That's wrong. You could destroy people's lives. But you can generally tell the folks, me and everybody else, here's what we got. Okay? And here's what the indictment was. This guy was going to get convicted. Evidence overwhelming. We've learned X, Y, and Z without giving names. You can do that. It's not hard to do that. Here's a kicker on it. Merrick Garland should be in this press conference. Biden had this info for 4 years. Justice Department and Biden. They didn't do anything. Now, if Trump was involved or anybody, any high-ranking Republican, believe me, that would have been out in a second. New York Times would have had that. Washington Post would have had that in a second. If there were any Republican or conservative people involved with Epstein, boom, that would have been out. Okay? And on the other side, I think the Trump administration probably would have gone after anybody on the liberal side. You got Bill Clinton associated with Epstein to some extent. I mean, they crossed paths. I don't know. But none of that ever came out. Just keep that in mind. But Merrick Garland knows as much as Pam Bondi knows. Where's Merrick? Where's him? I don't hear the media screaming about, well, let's bring in Merrick Garland. Or the former FBI chief, what's his name? Escapes me, I'm old. Under Biden, right? Get them both together. So anyway, the story's not going to go away. It's going to hurt President Trump. I don't think it'll hurt him dramatically, but, leadership is keep your promises, transparency. So let's get this done.